Hello, my name is Marina Fortune, and earlier this semester, I chose to do my case studies on Panama, and in this presentation, I will submerge into topics that I believe are representative of the country of Panama. More specifically, I will be discussing its outstanding geography and massive biodiversity, the indigenous tribes within Panama, and the makeup of the Panamanian economy and what makes it unique in Latin America. Starting off with the general geography of the country, the Isthmus of Panama is a narrow bridge of land connecting the North and South American continents. Because of its location near the equator and its relatively low altitudes, Panama is classified as a tropical nation, given that most of the year the weather is pretty hot and also very humid. Panama contains over 1,600 islands on both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and its many archipelagos, and its mainland is almost fully covered by thick rainforest. Panama is also very well known for its incredibly diverse flora and fauna, as it holds species that are entirely unique to the continent and the world. One of these species is the red frog, which is unique to a specific piece of land in Panama called Bocas del Toro. Because Panama is a land bridge between Northern and Southern America. As previously mentioned, Panama is home to a wide variety of animals like sloths and armadillos, which derive from South America, and is also home to jaguars and tapirs, which traditionally derive from North America, thus creating a unique mix of animals living in the country. The rainforests allow many varied plant species to flourish in the warm, humid climate of the country. And while most of the country is covered in rainforest, parts of land in the northern area of the country have higher altitudes and a climate more suitable for growing crops like coffee and strawberries. In this area, which is the state of Chiriquí, one can find Panama's highest peak at 11,401 feet, this being the inactive volcano called Baru. And land is not its only source of biodiversity, as both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans surrounding the isthmus are home to a huge amount of sea life unique to the continent. National parks and reserves occupy 1/6 of the total national land area, as well as some maritime areas, which is incredible when one realizes that Panama is a very tiny country in terms of land size. Within those protected natural areas, there are many indigenous tribes that reside there and live off the land, which takes me to my next topic. While there are various indigenous tribes in Panama, I chose to focus on the Cunayala tribe inhabiting the islands of San Blas. There are about 50,000 Cuna Indians that live in the 45 major islands of San Blas. And because they live in a protected territory, the elders of the Cuna tribe are left to run the affairs of the community, as they do not fall under official Panamanian legal jurisdiction. The Cunas survive day to day by fishing and harvesting fruits, especially coconuts, because they grow year-round, and earn money by selling molas, which are pieces of art comprised by colorful stitched fabric and traditionally hand-sewn by women, as shown in this picture by the Cuna woman who created these. Their most important source of revenue, however, comes from ecotourism coming through the islands. Unfortunately, not a lot of revenue is generated through their ecotourism industry because of a lack of infrastructure for tourists to arrive and stay. And in return, Kunas are not keen to allowing developers to come in and set up any hotels or infrastructure for tourists. They have had instances in the past where they showed violent resistance to outside tourist development, citing that they are very protective of their lands and in fact consider them to be sacred to their culture. Because of this, indigenous tribes in Panama, like the Kunas, struggle in poverty as they only rely on themselves, and they put a burden on the younger generations of their tribes. Speaking of the economy, this last part of the presentation focuses on the Panamanian economy. Panama has a dollar-based economy centered on the services sector, which accounts for more than 3/4 of the gross domestic product. Panama has also heavily promoted its ecotourism industry, as they have used a lot of its internal revenue as well as foreign investments from China, Latin America, the Middle East, and the United States to repair rail and road systems and their infrastructure, which has tremendously helped Panama's economic growth. Its most popular and well-known service is the Panama Canal, including the free trade zone in Colón and the container storage ports for commerce going through the canal. Going into the more specifics of the Panama Canal, it was originally built and occupied by the French and later by the Americans, starting in 1903 and remaining under the control of the U.S. Army all the way until 1999, when it was considered the Panama Canal Zone, after which it was given back to the Panamanian government. It has been a huge source of revenue for the government once the Torrijos-Carter Treaty, which was signed in the 70s but was implemented in 1999, took effect. The canal itself comprises of 51 miles of land from ocean to ocean and is ranked as one of the most strategic transportation hubs of the world, adding on to its power over certain international affairs and trade deals. The canal collects over $1 billion in revenue from tolls of the ships making their trip through the canal, and this figure should in fact triple over the coming years, as the recent expansion that took place in 2016 should increase the amount of ships going through the canal. Because of its location, it holds a monopoly on trade going from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, or vice versa. As a matter of fact, 75% of Asian imports use the canal to transport them to their destination on the other side of the canal. The canal is incredibly prosperous, which is the reason why Panama's economy is deemed much stronger than that of many of its Central American neighbors. The strong economy, however, still does not prevent public overspending by the government. But with the recent expansion of the canal and the extra revenue that should be coming from it, should help offset this overspending and eventually turn it into a profit. In conclusion, Panama is extremely diverse, both in its biodiversity and culturally, which makes it one of the most unique countries in Latin America. Panama needs no reminder to ensure that its biodiversity remains intact, especially in times like today, where climate change concerns are growing stronger and human interference is quite hesitant. The issues surrounding their native populations some that can be solved with cooperation, given that both parties would want to participate in order to flourish the ecotourism industry in the indigenous land reserves, while also bolstering the indigenous communities to have better access to resources and the infrastructure they need to improve their lives. Lastly, while their country still faces a few economic shortcomings, such as public overspending and an occasional case of political corruption, Panama still boasts very strong services and trade sectors with a lot of countries, and is amongst the more stable economies in the region. Panama should definitely be one of the countries in Latin America and in the world to watch in the future, as it looks towards further growth and development into an influential nation. These are my sources, and with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.